The dust hadn't settled from the noon stage when she walked into Grey Butte, her brown traveling dress marked with the red earth of 100 miles. Cole Ashford watched from the shadow of the old jail's porch, rolling an unlit cigarette between his fingers. 20 years of watching folks arrive had taught him to read trouble in the set of shoulders, the pace of boots on packed dirt. This woman, she carried trouble like a second shadow. She paused at the water trough outside Murphy's General Store, cupping the tepid water to her face with trembling hands. A purple bruise bloomed along her left cheekbone, fresh enough that Cole could trace its edges even from across the street. When she straightened, their eyes met hers the color of sage honey, wide with something between fear and determination. "Ma'am." Cole stepped into the harsh afternoon sun, his badge catching the light, though it hadn't meant much since Sheriff Briggs died 3 months back. "You need help." She studied him with the wariness of a spooked Mustang, one hand moving unconsciously to her throat where something glinted beneath her high collar. "I need," her voice cracked like drought-brittle wood. "I need somewhere to rest, just for a spell." "Hotel's 2 buildings down." Cole nodded toward the faded sign of Watson's boarding house. "Mrs. Watson keeps clean rooms." "I can't." The words came out sharp, desperate. She glanced over her shoulder at the empty road stretching back toward Millerton. "Please, I don't need much. Just somewhere quiet. Safe." Safe. The word hung between them like morning mist over the Rio Grande. Cole had stopped believing in safe the day he'd watched Judge Wexler walk free from a courtroom in San Antonio, leaving 3 dead witnesses in his wake. "There's a cot in the old jail." He gestured behind him. "Lock's been broken for years, but the roof don't leak. You'd be welcome to it." Relief softened her features, making her look younger, maybe 25, though the desert had a way of aging folks before their time. "I can pay. Not much, but—" "Keep your money." Cole turned toward the jail, hearing her footsteps follow. "Name's Cole Ashford. Used to be deputy here, though that don't mean much these days." "Eliza." She paused, as if considering how much truth to offer. "Eliza Hart." The jail consisted of 2 cells and a front room that had served as Sheriff Briggs's office. Dust motes danced in the slanted light from barred windows. Cole shook out a wool blanket from the supply chest, trying not to notice how Eliza's hands shook as she accepted it. "There's a pump out back for water. Mabel over at the Yellow Rose serves decent meals if you're hungry." "Thank you." She sank onto the cot as if her legs couldn't hold her another moment. "I won't be any trouble. I just need— Please don't let me burden you further." Something in her voice, that particular blend of pride and desperation, reminded Cole of his sister Mary before the fever took her. He started to leave, then turned back. "Miss Hart, that bruise needs tending." "Doc Morrison." "No." The word came out hard enough to chip stone, then softer. "No doctors, please." Cole studied her for a long moment. Whatever she was running from, it had taught her that help could turn to harm quicker than a rattler's strike. He'd seen that look before, usually on folks who tangled with the wrong side of power. "All right, but Mabel's got a gentle hand with such things, if you change your mind." He left her there, closing the door soft behind him. The afternoon stretched lazy and hot, cicadas thrumming their endless song. Cole resumed his post on the porch, but his mind kept circling back to that glimpse of metal at Eliza's throat and the way she'd near jumped out of her skin when he'd mentioned the doctor. The sun was painting the desert copper when Tobias Finch came galloping in on a lathered horse. The telegraph operator's usual nervous energy had sharpened to something closer to panic. "Cole!" He slid from the saddle, nearly tangling in his own stirrups. "Wire just came through from Millerton. They're looking for someone. A woman." Cole's cigarette paused halfway to his lips. "That's so—" "Young woman, brown hair, traveling alone. Says she's wanted for questioning regarding a theft from the Wexler estate." Tobias lowered his voice, though the street was empty save for a 3-legged dog sleeping in the shade. They're offering $100 for information on her whereabouts. The Wexler name hit Cole like a physical blow. He forced his expression neutral, taking a slow drag from his cigarette. Lot of young women with brown hair in these parts. Tobias. Maybe so, but how many show up alone with no luggage, looking like they've been riding hard for days? Tobias glanced toward the jail. Saw someone headed in there earlier. New arrival. My cousin from El Paso. The lie came smooth as whiskey. Been expecting her for weeks. Finally convinced her to visit after her husband passed. Tobias's eyes narrowed. He'd known Cole too long to swallow stories whole. Your cousin. That's right. The one you've never mentioned in 5 years of knowing you. We ain't close. Cole flicked his cigarette into the dirt, grinding it under his boot heel. Family's complicated. You know how it is. They stood there in the gathering dusk. 20 years of friendship balanced against whatever loyalty $100 might buy. Finally. Tobias sighed. Reckon I do know how family can be. My memory's been poor lately anyway. Couldn't describe a new arrival if my life depended on it. Appreciate that. Tobias remounted, then paused. Cole, whatever this is, be careful. The Wexler name's got weight all the way to Austin. Maybe beyond. I'm always careful. No, Tobias shook his head. You're always right. There's a difference. After he'd gone, Cole sat in the gathering darkness, listening to the town settle into evening. Somewhere a guitar played a mournful tune. The saloon's piano started up, slightly out of tune as always. Normal sounds of a normal night, except for the woman hiding in his jail and the ghost of Judge Wexler's name hanging in the air like gun smoke. He was still sitting there when the jail door creaked open. Eliza emerged like a shadow, pausing when she saw him. I should go. Her voice was steady now, resolved. I've brought you trouble already. Sit. Cole gestured to the empty chair beside him. Running in the dark's a good way to break your neck or worse. She hesitated, then sank into the chair, her spine rigid as a fence post. In the lamplight from Murphy's store, Cole could see what he'd missed before: the quality of her dress beneath the trail dust, the delicate chain at her throat. That telegram Tobias brought it was about me. It wasn't a question. Cole nodded. But you didn't tell him. Didn't see any reason to. Man wants to ask questions. He can come ask them himself, with proper papers. Eliza's hand went again to her throat. This time, she drew out what hung there, an ornate silver locket, the kind passed down through generations, even in the dim light. Cole could make out the engraving, an elaborate L surrounded by tiny birds in flight. This belonged to my sister, Lydia. The name came out cracked, full of grief. She died at the Wexler estate 3 months ago. They said she stole it, along with some money from the household safe. But she'd worn this locket since our mother died. It was never theirs to claim. And the money? A bitter smile touched her lips. What money? I cleaned their floors, mended their clothes. Lydia served at their table. We made $40 between us in a good month. What would we want with stealing? Cole had heard enough stories like this to fill a library. Poor folks accused of crimes to cover rich folks' sins. But something in Eliza's voice, the raw edge of loss beneath the anger, made this one settle different in his chest. Why come here, Millerton's 100 miles of hard country? Could have gone east to San Antonio, lost yourself in the crowds. She was quiet so long, Cole thought she wouldn't answer. When she did, her voice was barely above a whisper. Lydia wrote me a letter before she died. Got it to me through another girl who worked kitchens. Said if anything happened to her, I should look for a man named Ashford in Gray Butte. Said he was the only lawman who ever stood up to the Wexlers and lived to tell it. The words hit Cole like a bucket of cold water. He remembered Lydia, now a slim girl with Eliza's eyes, who'd testified in that San Antonio courtroom. Her testimony hadn't been enough, but she'd looked Judge Wexler in the eye and spoken truth. That took a particular kind of courage. I'm sorry about your sister. She was brave. She was 17. The words came out sharp as broken glass. 17 and dead because she wouldn't keep quiet about what she saw in that house. What did she see? Eliza's hand closed around the locket. I don't know all of it. Her letter... It didn't say everything. Just that there were papers. Documents that proved what everyone suspected, but no one could touch. She hid them before... Her voice broke. Cole let the silence stretch, knowing sometimes words needed their own time to come. The saloon sounds drifted over, laughter and argument in equal measure, normal sounds that felt suddenly fragile, like frost before sunrise. There's something else, Eliza finally continued. In the locket, under Lydia's picture. She worked the tiny clasp with practiced fingers, revealing not one but 2 photographs. Behind the image of a young woman who must have been Lydia was a folded piece of paper, thin as onion skin. I haven't read it, she admitted. I'm afraid it'll make everything real. As long as I don't know what it says, I can pretend she's just gone visiting somewhere. Foolish, I know. Not foolish. Cole thought of the letter he'd carried for 3 years after Mary died, unable to read her last words. Sometimes not knowing is the only kindness we get. She looked at him then, really looked at him, and Cole felt something shift in the space between them. Recognition, maybe, of the particular kind of loss that shaped a person like a river-shaped stone. Will you read it? She held out the paper. I need to know, but I can't. I can't be the one. Cole took the paper carefully. His hands, steady through gunfights and stampedes, trembled slightly as he unfolded it. The writing was cramped, hurried. They killed the Anders family. All of them. Made it look like Indians, but I saw the papers. Wexler ordered it for their land. There's proof in the study, hidden in the false bottom of the whiskey cabinet. More deaths, too. The judge's son Clive likes to hurt girls. Some don't survive. Get away. Find Ashford. He'll know what to do. All my love. Cole read it twice, his jaw tightening with each word. The Anders massacre had been big news 6 months back. A family of 5 found dead on their homestead, supposedly killed by Apache raiders. But the details had never sat right with Cole. Too clean, too convenient, with their land going up for auction within the week. He handed the paper back to Eliza, who read it with tears streaming down her face. When she finished, she folded it carefully, returning it to its hiding place. Now you know why I can't go to the law, she said. Wexler owns half the badges between here and Austin. Not this one. The words came out before Cole could stop them. Not anymore. She studied him in the lamplight. You're not wearing a badge now. No, but that don't mean I've forgotten what one stands for. He stood, suddenly restless. You need food and proper rest. Tomorrow we'll figure out what comes next. Tonight you're safe. You're safe. She repeated the word like she was tasting something foreign. I'd almost forgotten what that felt like. Cole helped her to her feet, noting how she swayed slightly. Exhaustion was catching up now that the immediate danger had passed. One more thing, he said as they reached the jail door. Tobias, the telegraph operator, he's a good man, but money talks loud in a town like this. Come morning, there'll likely be others asking questions. You might want to be my cousin from El Paso, recently widowed. Can you do that? A ghost of a smile touched her lips. I've been playing parts all my life. Mr. Ashford. What's one more? Cole, if we're going to be family, might as well use first names. Cole, then... She paused in the doorway. Why are you doing this? You don't know me. I could be lying about everything. He considered the question, looking out at the desert beyond the town's edge. Maybe because I've spent 3 years wondering if standing up to the Wexlers was worth losing everything. Maybe because your sister had the courage to speak truth when it mattered. Or maybe because I'm tired of watching them crush folks like bugs under their boots. Which one? All of them, I reckon. He touched his hat brim. Get some rest. Eliza, Tomorrow's gonna come whether we're ready or not." He watched her disappear into the jail, then resumed his vigil on the porch. The night wind carried the scent of sage and distant rain. Somewhere out there, riders were probably already mounting up, following the promise of $100 bounty. By morning, Gray Butte would be crawling with questions and men willing to get violent for answers. Cole rolled another cigarette, thinking about the weight of truth hidden in a dead girl's locket. The Wexlers had built their empire on blood and lies, protected by money and fear, but they'd made one mistake. They'd left witnesses. First Lydia, now Eliza, and Cole Ashford, who had lost everything once already and figured he didn't have much left to lose. The stars wheeled overhead, silent witnesses to the small dramas of men. In the jail, a brave woman tried to sleep while carrying her sister's last words against her heart. On the porch, a former lawman sat guard, wondering if redemption came to those who waited or only to those who went looking for it with guns drawn. Either way, morning would tell. Dawn came to Gray Butte with a whisper of cool air that would be memory by noon. Cole hadn't slept, keeping watch from various vantage points around town. His vigilance paid off. He spotted the dust cloud while the riders were still a mile out. 3 men, moving with the purposeful pace of those who expected to find what they sought. He knocked soft on the jail door. "Eliza, company's coming." She emerged already dressed, her hair pinned neat despite the circumstances. The bruise on her cheek had darkened overnight to purple-black, but she'd cleaned the trail dust from her dress and stood straighter than she had yesterday. "How many?" 3, still a ways out. Cole handed her a cup of coffee he'd gotten from Mabel. "You remember our story? Cousin from El Paso. Husband died of fever 2 months back." She sipped the coffee, grimacing at its strength. "Coming to stay with family while I figure out what's next." "Good. Mabel's expecting you for breakfast. She knows to play along." Eliza's eyes widened. "You told her?" "Told her enough. Mabel's got her own history with powerful men thinking they own the world. She'll help." The Yellow Rose Cafe occupied a narrow building squeezed between the barber shop and the undertaker's, as if commenting on the thin line between grooming and grave. Mabel Hutchins ran it with an iron fist wrapped in flour-dusted velvet. She looked up as they entered, her keen eyes taking in Eliza's bruised face without comment. "There's my nephew," she said loud enough for the other early customers to hear. "And you must be Elizabeth. Cole wrote me you were coming, though men never give enough detail in their letters. Sit, sit. You look half-starved." She bustled them to a corner table, her substantial form blocking view from the window. Within minutes, plates appeared laden with eggs, biscuits, and thick slices of ham. "Eat up, honey," Mabel said, patting Eliza's shoulder. "Grief's hard enough without facing it on an empty stomach." The normalcy of it, hot food, gentle touches. The murmur of everyday conversation seemed to undo Eliza more than yesterday's fear. Cole saw her eyes go bright with unshed tears as she forced herself to eat. The door chimed. 3 men entered, trail dust still thick on their clothes. Cole recognized the type immediately, gun hands pretending at respectability, the kind who did dirty work for those who wouldn't soil their own hands. The leader, a lean man with pale eyes and a fresh scar across his chin, scanned the room before approaching the counter. "Morning, ma'am. We're looking for someone might have come through yesterday. Young woman, traveling alone." Mabel's expression could have sweetened lemonade. "Lots of folks come through Gray Butte. We're on the stage line, after all. This one's particular, brown hair, about yay high." He held a hand at shoulder height. "Might be wearing a blue or brown dress, possibly injured." "Injured," Mabel's voice sharpened. "What kind of men are you, chasing after an injured woman?" The man's smile never reached his eyes. "Just concerned citizens. Ma'am, she's wanted for questioning about a theft, substantial theft, from the Wexler estate in Millerton." At the name Wexler, the cafe went quiet. Forks paused halfway to mouths. Even the coffee seemed to percolate more softly. Wexler? Mabel repeated the name like she was spitting out something sour. That'd be Judge Wexler. That's right. The same Judge Wexler who foreclosed on the Hendricks farm last winter left that family with 8 children sleeping in a wagon. The scarred man's expression hardened. Judge Wexler's business dealings ain't the issue here. Everything's connected in a small town. Mr. Mabel wiped her hands on her apron with deliberate slowness. Can't say I've seen any young women traveling alone. My nephew Cole there brought his cousin Elizabeth from El Paso yesterday. But she's family, not some thief. The man's pale eyes turned to their table. Cole met his gaze steady. One hand casual near his coffee cup, but ready to move for the Colt at his hip if needed. That's so. The man approached their table. Mrs. Ashford, Eliza said quietly, her voice pitched lower than her natural tone. Elizabeth Ashford. Well, Perkins was my married name, but... She let her voice trail off, touching the plain gold band on her finger, a prop Cole had provided that morning. My condolences on your loss, ma'am. The words held no sympathy. You come from El Paso. You said, yes, my husband had a small printing business there. The fever took him in July. Printing business. The man's eyes narrowed. What was the name? Perkins and Associates Printing. Cole interjected smoothly. On 3rd Street, near the plaza. Though I suspect it's closed up now. Elizabeth hasn't had the heart to go back and settle affairs yet. The man studied them both, clearly sensing something off, but unable to pin it down. His companions had spread through the cafe, one near the door, another by the window. Seems convenient. The scarred man finally said. Woman goes missing from Millerton. Another shows up here the next day. Lots of women in Texas, Cole observed. Most of them going somewhere or coming from somewhere else. That's what makes it Texas. Oh, you got a smart mouth? Friend? Had it all my life. Haven't found reason to change it yet. Tension stretched tight as fence wire. Several customers quietly moved toward the door. Father Quinn, the town's aging priest, chose that moment to enter, his arrival breaking the moment like a stone through glass. Mabel, my dear, might I trouble you for a... He took in the scene with shrewd eyes behind wire spectacles. I seem to have interrupted something. These gentlemen were just asking after a young woman. Mabel said, seems she's gone missing from Judge Wexler's employ. Father Quinn's expression shifted subtly. Wexler, yes, I've heard that name. Nothing good attached to it. I'm afraid. He moved to Cole's table, resting a hand on Eliza's shoulder. Mrs. Perkins, isn't it Cole mentioned you'd arrived? My deepest condolences on your loss. Will you be attending services this Sunday? Yes, I think I will. Wonderful. Faith can be such a comfort in times of grief. He turned to the scarred man. Surely you gentlemen aren't suggesting this poor widow is the woman you seek. That would be quite the coincidence. Coincidences happen, the man said stubbornly. Indeed they do, like the coincidence of the Anders family dying just when Judge Wexler wanted their water rights, or the coincidence of witnesses against him developing sudden illnesses before trials. Father Quinn's mild tone belied the steel beneath. Quite remarkable how coincidences seem to favor the powerful. The scarred man's hand twitched toward his gun. You should be careful. Priest, that sounds almost like accusation. Merely observation. I'm old. You see, I've observed a great many things. Father Quinn smiled benignly. Will you gentlemen be staying for breakfast? Mabel makes excellent flapjacks. For a long moment, violence hummed in the air like a tuning fork struck hard. Then the scarred man stepped back, jerking his head at his companions. We'll be around town for a bit, he told the room at large. In case anyone's memory improves, the Wexlers are offering good money for information. Real good money. After they left, Conversation resumed in fits and starts. Eliza's hands trembled as she lifted her coffee cup. That was close, she breathed. Too close, Cole agreed. And it's only going to get worse. Men like that don't give up easy. Father Quinn pulled up a chair. Forgive my intrusion, but when men invoke the Wexler name as if it were holy writ, I feel compelled to act. They've caused enough suffering. You know them, Eliza asked. I knew the family they destroyed last winter. Baptized 3 of the Anders' children myself. His eyes went hard behind the gentle spectacles. Whatever you're hiding from, my child, you'll find allies here. The Wexlers have taken too much from too many. Mabel returned with fresh coffee and her own particular brand of determined comfort. Those men are staying at Watson's boarding house, already asking questions all over town. But folks here have long memories. The Wexlers squeezed this town dry during the drought of '72. Nobody's forgotten. Some will talk for money. Cole pointed out, $100 is more than most see in a year. Then we'll have to give them reason not to. Mabel's jaw set firm. Elizabeth, you'll stay with me. I've got a room above the cafe. Any stranger comes looking. You'll be my niece helping with the breakfast rush. I couldn't. You could and you will. Mabel's tone brooked no argument. Cole's place is too obvious now. They'll be watching. She was right. Cole had made himself a target by claiming Eliza as family. The scarred man who'd introduced himself to Watson as Mr. Dalton would have men watching the jail and anywhere else Cole might go. There's another problem, Cole said quietly. If they've wired about the search, Clive Wexler himself might be coming. He doesn't usually trust important matters to hired hands. Eliza went pale. Lydia mentioned him in her letter, said he likes to hurt people. Young women in particular, Father Quinn confirmed grimly. Though nothing's ever proven, witnesses disappear or change their stories. Money smooths over many sins. Not this time, Cole said. The words surprised him with their firmness. This time, we know what they did. The Anders family, Lydia, probably others. That letter she left is evidence. Evidence needs to reach someone who'll act on it. Father Quinn pointed out. The circuit judge is Wexler's cousin. The marshal in Millerton is on his payroll. Even the rangers. There's a federal prosecutor in Austin. Cole interrupted. James Morrison. We served together in the war. He's been trying to build a case against the Wexlers for years but could never find witnesses willing to testify. Austin's a long way, Mabel observed, especially with hired guns on your trail. Then we'd best move smart. Cole pushed back from the table. Eliza, gather your things from the jail. Quick and quiet. I'll watch for our friends. They moved through town like shadows. Eliza keeping her head down while Cole tracked the movements of Dalton's men. One lounged outside the telegraph office. Another had positioned himself where he could watch both the jail and the main road. The third was nowhere in sight, likely making rounds, asking questions, spreading money like seeds. Inside the jail, Eliza gathered her few possessions. She paused at the cot, running her hand over the worn blanket. First place I felt safe in months, she said softly. Won't be the last, Cole promised. Get what you need. We're burning daylight. She was tucking the locket inside her bodice when hoofbeats thundered up outside. Not 1 or 2 horses sounded like half a dozen or more. Cole peered through the barred window, then cursed under his breath. Speaking of the devil, a group of riders had arrived, led by a young man whose expensive clothes and cruel mouth marked him as clearly as a brand. Clive Wexler had come to Grey Butte himself, and he'd brought enough men to take what he wanted by force if necessary. Back door, Cole said urgently. Move! But as they slipped out the rear, one of Dalton's men spotted them. His shout brought others running. Cole grabbed Eliza's hand, pulling her into the maze of alleys behind Main Street. This way. Keep low. They dodged between buildings. Cole's knowledge of the town's hidden paths their only advantage. Behind them, voices shouted orders. Someone fired a shot, warning or wild. Cole couldn't tell. The church loomed ahead, its adobe walls offering potential sanctuary. Father Quinn stood in the doorway as if he'd been expecting them. "Quickly," he urged. "Through the vestry." Inside, the cool dimness wrapped around them like a blessing. Father Quinn led them past the altar to a small door Cole had never noticed before. "Old bootlegger's tunnel," the priest explained. "From before my time, leads to the root cellar behind Murphy's store. Father, if they find out you helped, then I'll remind them that sanctuary is an ancient rite. Go, I'll delay them." The tunnel was narrow, dark, barely tall enough for Cole to stand upright. They felt their way along, Eliza's hand tight in his. Behind them, muffled shouts suggested their pursuers had reached the church. They emerged in dusty daylight behind Murphy's store. Samuel Murphy himself was loading his delivery wagon, and he barely blinked at their appearance. "Figured you might need transportation," he said mildly. "Got a load heading to the Bradley Ranch? They're good folks. Don't care for Wexlers any more than the rest of us." Cole helped Eliza into the wagon bed, covering her with a canvas tarp before climbing up himself. Murphy arranged sacks of flour and cornmeal to provide additional cover. "Where are we really going?" Cole asked quietly. "Sister Agatha's place first. She runs a refuge for women about 10 miles north. From there—" Murphy shrugged. "That's up to you." The wagon rolled out of town at an unhurried pace. Cole kept his hand on his gun, listening for pursuit. But Murphy was known for his regular deliveries. One more wagon on the road wouldn't draw immediate attention. They'd gone maybe 3 miles when Eliza spoke from beneath the tarp. "Cole, what happens when they realize I'm gone?" "They tear the town apart looking," he answered honestly. "But Gray Butte survived worse than Wexler tantrums. The people there, Mabel, Father Quinn, the others, they know what they're risking." "Why, they don't even know me." "They know what's right. Sometimes that's enough." The wagon rolled on through the morning heat, somewhere behind them. Clive Wexler was learning that his prey had slipped the net. He'd rage, threaten, possibly even hurt someone. But the town would hold. They'd held against drought, Apache raids, and carpetbaggers. They could hold against one more bully with a famous name. "Cole," Eliza's voice came again, smaller this time. "That letter Lydia left, is it really enough to bring them down?" "By itself, no." Cole shifted position, checking their back trail. "But it's a start. And sometimes a start is all you need to get folks talking. Your sister wasn't the first person the Wexlers hurt. If others find courage to speak up—" "You think they will?" Cole thought about Mabel's fierce protectiveness, Father Quinn's quiet steel, the way the whole cafe had gone silent at Wexler's name. Fear ran deep, but so did anger. And anger, given direction, could move mountains. "Yeah," he said finally. "I think they will. Question is whether we can stay alive long enough to give them the chance." The wagon rolled on, carrying them toward uncertain sanctuary. Behind them, Gray Butte prepared for siege. The town of closed doors had finally chosen a side. The cabin sat in a hollow between 2 ridges, surrounded by juniper and pinon pine that whispered secrets to the wind. Cole's grandfather had built it 40 years back, when the Comanche still rode these hills and a man needed walls between himself and the wide world. Now it served as refuge for different dangers. Murphy had left them at Sister Agatha's with supplies and good wishes. The nun, tough as saddle leather despite her 70 years, had taken one look at Eliza's bruised face and asked no questions beyond, "How long?" Cole said a few days, maybe a week. She'd nodded, understanding that sometimes safety was measured in hours, not certainties. But they couldn't stay. Sister Agatha's refuge was too well known, too obvious a hiding place. So Cole had brought Eliza here, to this cabin that even most locals had forgotten existed. "It's not much," he said, setting down their supplies. "But the walls are sound, and there's a spring out back that runs year-round." Eliza stood in the doorway. taking in the single room with its stone fireplace, rough-hewn table, and narrow bunks built into opposite walls. Dust motes danced in the afternoon light streaming through oil paper windows. "It's perfect," she said softly, "like stepping out of the world for a spell." They settled into an awkward routine. Cole showed her where his grandfather had cached emergency supplies, salt pork, dried beans, ammunition for various calibers. The old man had believed in preparing for siege, and his foresight served them well now. "Can you shoot?" Cole asked as he cleaned his rifle. "I can aim. Never had cause to pull a trigger at anything living." "Might not have a choice if they find us." He showed her the basics: how to load, sight, squeeze rather than jerk the trigger. Her hands were steady, her concentration complete. "You're a natural." "Necessity's a harsh teacher." She practiced the motions, building muscle memory. "Lydia was the brave one. I just mended clothes and kept quiet. Courage isn't about being fearless. It's about doing what needs doing despite the fear." That first night, they sat on opposite sides of the fireplace, the flames painting shadows on adobe walls. Cole had strung blankets across the middle of the room for privacy, but the space still felt too intimate, charged with unspoken possibilities. "Tell me about your grandfather," Eliza said, perhaps feeling it too. "Josiah Ashford came west in 41 with nothing but a rifle and stubborn streak wide as Texas. Trapped beaver until the trade died, then turned to ranching. Never got rich, but he died free on his own land. Can't ask for more than that." "My father was a school teacher," Eliza offered. "Back in Ohio. Believed education could solve all the world's ills. When he died, Mama brought us west thinking it'd be easier. Found out hard truths don't change with geography." They talked until the fire burned low, sharing stories like traders exchanging goods. Cole learned that Eliza could cipher faster than most men, that she'd once sewn a wedding dress so fine the bride's mother wept, that she sang to herself when nervous but only in French, a language her grandmother had taught her. He told her about his sister Mary, dead of scarlet fever at 15, about the war, though he kept those stories brief and bloodless, about the day he'd first pinned on a badge, thinking he could make a difference. "What changed?" she asked. "Learned the law and justice aren't always the same thing, that a badge means nothing if the system behind it is rotten." The second day brought the first test of their refuge. Cole was gathering firewood when he spotted dust rising from the valley below. Riders, moving with purpose along the old Apache trail that wound toward the cabin. He sprinted back, finding Eliza mending one of his shirts by the window. "Company, 3 riders, maybe 4, get the rifle!" Her face paled, but her hands stayed steady as she fetched the weapon. Cole positioned himself at the front window while she took the back. "Remember what I taught you. Don't shoot unless I do. Might be nothing." But his gut said otherwise. The riders came on steady, and Cole recognized the lead horse's distinctive gait. Dalton, the scarred man from the cafe. Somehow they'd picked up the trail. "They're stopping," Eliza whispered. "Quarter-mile down." Smart. They'd spotted the cabin but weren't sure if it was occupied. Cole watched Dalton dismount, studying the ground, looking for sign footprints, horse droppings, anything to confirm their quarry was here. Minutes stretched like hours. A bead of sweat traced down Cole's spine despite the cool mountain air. Beside him, Eliza breathed shallow and quick. Then, miracle or providence, the wind kicked up, a sudden gust that sent dust and pine needles swirling, obliterating any tracks they might have left. Dalton remounted, gesturing to his men. They continued up the trail without stopping. Cole didn't relax until the dust of their passage faded completely. "Close," he breathed. "Too close." Eliza set the rifle down with trembling hands. "They'll be back." "Maybe, but that wind bought us time." He touched her shoulder gently. "You did good. Kept your head." She looked up at him, those honey-colored eyes bright with unshed tears. "I was terrified." So was I, but we got through it. That night, the storm that had been building all day finally broke. Rain hammered the roof like bullets, turning the trail below into a muddy torrent that would hide their sign for days. They sat close to the fire, listening to thunder roll through the valleys like God's own artillery. My grandmother used to say storms were heaven's way of washing the world clean. Eliza said, starting fresh. Your grandmother sounds wise. Taught me that pretty stitches matter less than strong seams, that what holds underneath is what counts. She paused, studying her hands. I've been thinking about that letter, about what Lydia knew. Those papers she mentioned, if they're still in Wexler's study. You're not thinking of going back. Someone has to. The letter alone isn't enough. You said so yourself. But with those documents, it's suicide. That house is a fortress now. Clive's probably got men in every room. Maybe. Or maybe he thinks I've run far and fast. Might not expect anyone to double back. She met his eyes steadily. I know that house. Cole. Worked there near 6 months. I know which stairs creak, which doors stick, where the servants go and when. Cole wanted to argue, to forbid it outright. But she wasn't his to command, and her logic held an uncomfortable truth. Evidence was what they needed. Without it, Lydia's death meant nothing. We'd have to wait, he said finally. Let them think we've fled the territory, then approach careful, plan every detail. A small smile touched her lips. You'd come with me. You think I'd let you walk into that viper's nest alone? My mama raised me better than that. The storm raged on, but inside the cabin, something had shifted. They were no longer strangers thrown together by circumstance. They were partners, united by purpose, if nothing else. The next days passed in a blur of preparation and growing ease. Cole taught Eliza to move silent through the woods, to read sign, to find water in dry country. She taught him patience with needle and thread, mending not just clothes, but something in himself he hadn't known was torn. They were gathering water from the spring one afternoon when Eliza suddenly gripped his arm. Listen. Horses. Not on the trail below, but coming from above, following the ridgeline. Cole pulled her behind a cluster of boulders, drawing his pistol. 2 riders appeared, moving slow and careful. Not Dalton's men, these wore the distinctive short jackets favored by vaqueros from the southern ranches. They stopped at the spring, letting their horses drink. Said they'd pay triple for information. One was saying in Spanish accented English. Every ranch from here to the border got visitors asking about a woman and a man. Let them ask, the other replied. Money's no good if you're not alive to spend it. You remember what happened to Miguel when he crossed the Wexlers? They moved on, unaware of their hidden audience. Cole waited a full 10 minutes before emerging. It's getting worse, Eliza said unnecessarily. Yeah, they're expanding the search. Means we're running out of time. That evening, as they prepared a simple meal of beans and salt pork, the domesticity of it struck Cole hard. How easily they'd fallen into rhythm her seasoning while he tended the fire. Wordless cooperation born of trust. Dangerous territory for a man who'd sworn off attachments after Mary died. You're thinking heavy thoughts, Eliza observed. Wondering what happens after. Say we get those papers, get them to Austin. Wexlers go down. What then? She was quiet for a moment, stirring the pot. I used to dream about opening my own shop. Nothing fancy, just a place where women could come for good clothes at fair prices. Silly, I suppose. Not silly, practical. World needs more of that and less of men like Wexler. What about you? Will you go back to wearing a badge? Cole considered it. Don't know. Thought that part of me died with Sheriff Briggs. But lately, he gestured vaguely at the cabin. At her. At the whole strange situation. Lately, I'm remembering why I pinned one on in the first place. She smiled, the expression transforming her face. Josiah Ashford's grandson, still trying to save the world. Just a small piece of it? Sometimes that's enough. The fire crackled between them, sending sparks up the chimney like prayers. Outside, wind sang through the pines, and somewhere in the distance, a wolf called to its pack. The world felt vast and wild and full of possibility, even with danger closing in from all sides. "Cole," Eliza's voice was soft. "Whatever happens, I want you to know I'm grateful. For everything. For believing Lydia's story. For risking yourself for a stranger." "You're not a stranger anymore." "No," she agreed. "I suppose I'm not." They sat in comfortable silence as the night deepened around them. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers. They'd have to move soon, whether back toward the viper's nest of the Wexler estate or further into the wilderness. But tonight, in this forgotten cabin with the storm's memory still fresh in the air, they had found something precious, a moment of peace in the eye of gathering storms. Cole banked the fire carefully, checking the door's bar one more time. Across the room, Eliza prepared for sleep, her movements easy and unself-conscious now. They'd crossed some invisible line in these days together, moved from wary alliance to something deeper. "Good night, Cole," she called softly. "Good night, Eliza. Sleep well." But he lay awake long after her breathing evened out, planning tomorrow's moves and the day after. Somewhere out there, Clive Wexler raged and searched. Dalton and his men swept the country like hunting dogs. The net was drawing tighter. Soon they'd have to choose run far and fast, abandoning any hope of justice, or turn and fight with whatever weapons they could muster. Neither option promised survival. But then, Cole reflected, his grandfather hadn't come west looking for promises. He'd come looking for a chance to live free or die trying. Same choice faced them now, and listening to Eliza's peaceful breathing in the darkness, Cole knew which way they'd turn. Back toward danger, toward truth, toward a reckoning long overdue. The wolf called again, closer now. Cole smiled grimly. Let them come. He and Eliza would be ready. The return to Gray Butte came under cover of a moonless night. Cole had sent word ahead through Murphy's nephew, a reliable boy who ran messages between the outlying ranches. The response came back in Father Quinn's careful script: "The hornets still buzz, but the nest grows careless. Your friend from Austin awaits." Deputy Marcus Rudd stood in the shadows behind the church, older and grayer than Cole remembered, but with the same steady eyes that had made him the best tracker in 3 counties. They clasped hands briefly, the greeting of men who'd shared danger before. "Thought you'd gone to California," Cole said. "Did," came back. "Turns out running from yourself don't work, no matter how far you go." Rudd's gaze shifted to Eliza. "Ma'am, heard about your sister. I'm sorry." "Thank you." Eliza pulled her shawl tighter against the desert chill. "Cole says you're one of the few honest lawmen left. Former lawmen, like him. Though lately I'm wondering if that was a mistake." Rudd led them through back alleys to a small adobe house near the Mexican Quarter. "Been doing some digging since Cole's message came. That name in the letter H got me curious." Inside, the house was sparse but clean. Rudd had spread papers across a rough table court documents, land deeds, newspaper clippings. Started thinking about patterns. Rudd explained, lighting a lamp. Wexler's been a snake for years, but he was always small-time, intimidation, bribery, the occasional suspicious death. Then about 18 months ago, things changed, got bolder, bloodier. "The Anders family," Cole said. "Among others, but here's what's interesting." Rudd pulled out a document. Every major crime, every land grab, every witness who disappeared, they all happened after Judge Hale Crane took over the Northern Circuit. The timing's too neat to be coincidence. Eliza studied the papers. "You think Crane's the real power?" "Makes sense," Cole mused. "Wexler's brutal but not subtle. Someone's been planning these moves like a chess game, using the law itself as a weapon. There's more." Rudd produced a telegraph flimsy. Sister Agatha has friends at the territorial capital. Word is, Crane's got his eye on the governorship. Been gathering backing from all the wrong people, land speculators, railroad money, folks who'd profit from chaos. And Wexler's his attack dog, Eliza said quietly. Doing the dirty work while Crane keeps his hands clean. Exactly. Which brings us to tonight. Rudd looked between them. Got a freight wagon heading out at dawn. Driver owes me favors from way back. He'll hide you in the cargo. Get you past Wexler's watchers. But there's risk. There's been risk since I walked into Gray Butte. Eliza interrupted. At least now we know what we're really fighting. They spent the remaining hours until dawn reviewing the layout of the Wexler estate, comparing Eliza's servant's knowledge with Rudd's memories from official visits. The study where Lydia had seen the documents was on the second floor, accessible through either the main stairs or a narrow servant's stair from the kitchen. Guards, Cole asked. 2 at the main gate, 1 roaming the grounds. Maybe more inside since all this started. Rudd marked positions on a rough map. But tomorrow's the monthly cattle auction. Clive always attends. It's where he does his other business, making deals and threats. House should be lighter staffed. Should be isn't good enough. Cole said, It's what we've got. Eliza's voice held quiet steel. Lydia died for this. I won't waste her sacrifice by waiting for perfect odds. They moved through the pre-dawn darkness to Murphy's warehouse where the freight wagon waited. The driver, a taciturn man named Josiah Bentley, showed them the hidden compartment built beneath the wagon bed. Used to run escaped slaves north, he explained. Figured it might serve justice again. The space was cramped, airless. Cole and Eliza pressed close in the darkness, breathing shallow as crates were loaded above them. The wagon lurched into motion, wheels creaking over rutted roads. Time lost meaning in the black confines. Cole felt Eliza trembling beside him and found her hand, squeezing gently. She gripped back hard enough to hurt. Finally, blessedly. The wagon stopped. Bentley's boots appeared beside the compartment. Edge of town, roads clear. They emerged gasping into afternoon light. Muscles cramped from hours of stillness. The Wexler estate sprawled a quarter-mile ahead, its white walls glaring in the sun like bleached bones. Auction's in full swing, Bentley reported. Saw Clive's horse at the sale grounds. You've got maybe 2 hours. They approached through the orchards, using irrigation ditches for cover. The guard at the back gate dozed in the heat, making entry almost too easy. Eliza led the way through servants' passages she knew by heart, pausing at each corner to listen. The house felt empty. Drowsing in siesta stillness, they climbed the narrow back stairs, wood creaking softly under their boots. At the study door, Cole paused. Let me go first. No, Eliza pushed past him. I know where to look. The study was all dark wood and leather, heavy with the scent of cigars and bourbon. Eliza went straight to the liquor cabinet, running her hands along its base. Lydia said false bottom. Here. A click and a panel swung open. Inside lay a leather portfolio thick with documents. Cole kept watch while Eliza rifled through them, her face paling with each page. Dear God, it's worse than we thought. She held up a ledger. Payments to Arizona Rangers for special services. Orders signed by Crane for the Anders family, the Hendricks, a dozen others. And this, she showed him a letter. Plans to force out every small rancher between here and El Paso. Create a land monopoly before the railroad comes through. Take it all. We need to... Footsteps in the hall. Cole drew his pistol, pushing Eliza behind the desk. The door opened to reveal not a guard, but a young Mexican woman in servant's dress. She saw them and gasped, hand flying to her mouth. Please, Eliza whispered. We're not here to hurt anyone. The girl's eyes widened with recognition. You're Miss Lydia's sister. She showed me your photograph. You knew Lydia. She was kind to me. The only one who was... The girl glanced nervously down the hall. "They're coming back early. Senor Clive got angry about something at the auction. You must go, quickly." She led them down a different route, through unused rooms dusty with neglect. As they reached the kitchen, horses clattered into the front courtyard. "The cellar," the girl whispered, shoving them toward a heavy door. "It connects to the old wine caves. You can get out through the hillside." They plunged into musty darkness. Behind them, Clive Wexler's voice roared through the house, demanding to know why the study door stood open. Their guide had bought them moments. Nothing more. The caves twisted through limestone, black as pitch. They felt their way along, Eliza clutching the portfolio like a lifeline. Then, blessed relief, a glimmer of daylight ahead. They emerged on the far side of the hill, dust-covered and gasping. No time to rest. Already they could hear searchers spreading through the grounds. They ran for the orchards, using tree rows for cover. A shot cracked out, bark exploding from a trunk inches from Cole's head. He spun, returning fire, driving their pursuers to cover. The horses. Eliza pointed to a string of mounts tied near a equipment shed. "Can we?" "No choice." They sprinted across open ground. Cole laying covering fire. More shots answered, lead whining past like angry hornets. Cole boosted Eliza onto a bay mare, then vaulted onto a rangy sorrel. They kicked the horses into a gallop as riders burst from the estate gates. The chase that followed was a nightmare of pounding hooves and gunfire. Eliza rode like she was born to it, low over the horse's neck. Cole stayed behind, trading shots with their pursuers, trying to buy distance. Then disaster. Eliza's horse stumbled, sending her tumbling into a dry wash. Cole wheeled back, reaching her as she struggled to rise, portfolio still clutched tight. "Can you ride?" "My ankle." He hauled her up behind him as the pursuit closed in. The sorrel, brave heart that it was, carried them both without complaint, but the double weight was telling. Their lead shrank with each stride. Ahead, the church spire of Gray Butte pierced the sky. So close, but Clive's men were gaining. Cole could make out individual faces now, twisted with bloodlust. Then, miraculously, more riders appeared ahead, Rudd leading a group of townsmen, all armed. The two forces met in a chaos of dust and shouting. Cole drove through the melee, making for town. They thundered down Main Street as the church bells began to ring Father Quinn's signal that sanctuary was offered and claimed. Cole pulled up at the church steps, half carrying Eliza inside. "The portfolio," she gasped. "We have to—" "Safe," Father Quinn assured her, taking the leather case. "Sister Agatha's already sent riders to Austin. Multiple copies, multiple routes. Whatever happens here, the truth will reach honest ears." Outside, the gun battle raged. Through the windows, Cole could see Clive Wexler rallying his men, face twisted with rage. But the townspeople had found their courage at last. From windows and doorways, rifles spoke their defiance. "Started the moment you left," Rudd explained, reloading his pistol. "Mabel organized the women, Murphy the merchants, even got some vaqueros from the Mexican quarter. Seems everybody's got a grievance with the Wexlers." "They'll burn the town," Eliza said. "Let them try." Mabel herself appeared, carrying a shotgun like she knew how to use it. "This is our home. We've decided no more running, no more bowing to tyrants." A strange standoff developed. Clive's men controlled the approaches to the church, but the townspeople held strong positions throughout Gray Butte. Neither side could move without terrible casualties. As the sun began to sink, a new dust cloud appeared on the horizon. Riders approaching fast, but from the direction of Austin, Cole counted a dozen men, maybe more, riding in formation. Rangers, Rudd wondered. But the lead rider carried no ranger star. Instead, he bore the federal eagle of a U.S. Marshal. The cavalry had arrived, but whose side they'd take remained to be seen. Clive Wexler rode out to meet them, no doubt spinning tales of outlaws and rebellion, but the marshal, a hard-faced man named Thompson, simply held up his hand for silence. He produced a paper from his coat. Clive Wexler, by order of the Federal Court for the Western District of Texas, you are under arrest for conspiracy, murder, and corruption of public officials. You will surrender immediately. This is outrageous, my father. Is already in custody, along with Judge Crane and a dozen others. Seems some interesting documents reached Austin this morning. Very detailed documents. Clive went for his gun. It was the last mistake he ever made. 3 marshals drew and fired as one, dropping him in the dust. His men, seeing their leader fall, threw down their weapons. It was over. Just like that. The reign of terror ended not with a bang, but with the quiet rustle of legal papers. Cole found he was holding Eliza, or perhaps she was holding him. It didn't matter which. "We did it," she whispered. "Lydia, we did it." Later, as statements were given and prisoners secured, Marshal Thompson pulled Cole aside. "That was good work. Dangerous, but good. Ever consider wearing a federal star?" Cole looked across the square to where Eliza sat with Mabel, finally allowing the older woman to tend her injured ankle. "Thanks, but no. Think I've found better work to do." Thompson followed his gaze and smiled. "I understand. Well, if you change your mind, we could use men who know the difference between law and justice." As night fell over Gray Butte, the town began to breathe again. The shadow that had lain over them was lifting, and folk emerged to share their own stories of Wexler crimes, adding their voices to the chorus of truth. Eliza found Cole on the church steps, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. She sat beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "What happens now?" she asked. "Trials, justice, maybe some healing." He looked at her. "What about you, that shop you dreamed of?" "Maybe. Though I've been thinking, there are other women out there like me, like Lydia. Maybe what they need isn't just pretty dresses, but someone who'll listen, who'll help them find their voices." "Sounds like good work." "Dangerous work," she corrected. "The Wexlers aren't the only powerful men who prey on the helpless." "True." Cole took her hand, marveling at how natural it felt. "Might need a partner for work like that. Someone who knows the law, even if he doesn't wear a badge." She smiled, the expression lighting her whole face. "Are you applying for the position, Mr. Ashford?" "If you'll have me, Miss Hart." "Well then, I suppose we'd better discuss terms." They sat there as the town celebrated around them. 2 souls who'd found purpose in the midst of pain. The fight wasn't over, it never truly was. But for tonight, under the vast Texas sky, they'd won a victory worth savoring. And somewhere in the stars above, perhaps Lydia smiled too, knowing her truth had finally set them free. The Wexler mansion stood like a monument to greed against the evening sky, its white columns glowing orange in the sunset. Cole and Rudd crouched behind a stand of mesquite trees, watching the guards patrol with mechanical precision. 2 at the front, 1 at the back, Rudd murmured. "Just like we figured." "Except for him." Cole pointed to a 4th man stationed on the upper balcony. "That's new." They'd planned this carefully over the past 3 days, with Clive in custody and his father under federal guard in Austin. The estate should have been nearly empty, but someone was still maintaining security. The question was who and why. "Could abort," Rudd suggested. "Come back another time." "No." Eliza's voice was firm as she joined them, having circled around from the servants' quarters. "The federal prosecutor needs those original documents. The copies we sent aren't enough for trial." She'd changed in the days since their first escape from this place. The frightened woman who'd stumbled into Gray Butte was gone, replaced by someone with steel in her spine and purpose in her eyes. Cole admired the transformation even as it worried him. Courage could get you killed as easily as cowardice in his experience. "There's another problem," Eliza continued. I saw Margaret, the girl who helped us escape. She signaled from the kitchen window. Something's wrong inside." As if in response to her words, a woman's scream pierced the evening air, high, terrified, cut short too abruptly. "Hell," Cole muttered. So much for stealth. They moved fast, Rudd taking the front to draw attention while Cole and Eliza slipped around back. The guard there was already moving toward the commotion, leaving his post undefended. They ghosted through the kitchen door to find chaos. Margaret cowered behind an overturned table, while a young housemaid, couldn't have been more than 16, struggled in the grip of a man Cole didn't recognize. Well-dressed, soft-looking, with a cruel mouth that seemed bred into a certain class of men. "Stop fighting, girl." The man's voice held an ugly anticipation. "Clive promised me pick of the household staff as payment. With him gone, I'm collecting early." Cole's gun was in his hand before conscious thought. "Let her go." The man spun, keeping the girl as a shield. Well, the famous Cole Ashford and the runaway seamstress. How convenient. "I said let her go." Cole kept his voice level, though rage burned in his chest. The girl's terror reminded him too sharply of other innocents the Wexlers had destroyed. "I don't think so." The man produced a derringer, pressing it to the girl's temple. "See, I'm a businessman. Howard Blackwood, if you're curious. I've invested heavily in the Wexlers' operations. Can't have that investment threatened by some backwater notion of justice. Justice has a way of collecting its debts," Eliza said quietly. She'd moved to Margaret's side, helping the older servant to her feet. "Ask Clive." "Oh, wait, you can't." Blackwood's face darkened. "Stupid woman. You think this ends with a few arrests? The Wexlers are just one thread in a tapestry. Cut them out, others take their place. Men like me ensure that." "Not today." Rudd's voice came from behind. The deputy had entered silent as smoke, his rifle centered on Blackwood's spine. "Drop the gun. Won't ask twice." For a moment, the kitchen balanced on a knife's edge. Then Blackwood smiled, an expression more chilling than any snarl. "Very well." He released the girl, who scrambled away. "But you're making a mistake. I have friends, powerful friends, who—" The derringer in his hand swung toward Cole. 3 guns spoke at once, Cole's, Rudd's, and surprisingly, Eliza's. She'd drawn the small pistol Cole had given her for protection, and her shot was true as any. Blackwood crumpled, his derringer clattering harmlessly across the floor. He stared up at them with fading surprise, as if he couldn't quite believe that consequences had finally found him. "Nice shooting," Rudd told Eliza. She lowered the pistol with steady hands, though her face had gone pale. He was going to kill Cole. That he was. Cole moved to check Blackwood's pulse, finding none. "And probably the rest of us after. You did what needed doing." The housemaid, her name was Lucy, they learned clung to Margaret, sobbing with relief. Other servants began emerging from hiding places, faces tight with fear and hope mixed. "Is it over?" an older woman asked. "Truly over." "The Wexlers are finished," Cole assured her. "But we need those documents from the study. Quickly, before my associates arrive." A new voice cut through the room like a blade. Judge Hale Crane stood in the doorway, flanked by 4 armed men. The architect of so much misery looked smaller than Cole had expected, thin, aesthetic, with eyes like chips of winter ice. Nothing about him suggested the monster he was, which perhaps was the most monstrous thing of all. "Judge Crane." Cole kept his hand near his gun, but didn't draw. 4-3 odds in close quarters with civilians present meant slaughter. "Heard you were in Austin." A convenient fiction to draw out conspirators. Crane entered the kitchen with fastidious steps, avoiding Blackwood's spreading blood. "Poor Howard, so crude in his methods. I did warn him that discretion was paramount." "You've been here the whole time," Eliza said. understanding dawning. Pulling strings, letting others take the fall. Precisely. The Wexlers were useful tools, but tools can be replaced. I, on the other hand, am rather more essential to certain interests. He studied them with academic curiosity. You've caused considerable inconvenience. The Anders documents alone will require extensive legal maneuvering to neutralize. Those documents prove you ordered murders. Rudd growled. No maneuvering changes that? My dear fellow, you'd be amazed what money and influence can change. Witnesses recant, evidence disappears, memories fade. I've survived far worse scandals than this. Cole felt Eliza tense beside him. Like my sister's murder. Ah, yes, the unfortunate Lydia, so determined to meddle in affairs beyond her station, though I must confess, her death was Clive's excess, not my order. I prefer subtler methods. Subtle like destroying families for their land. Progress demands sacrifice. Crane's tone held the casual certainty of a man discussing weather. The railroad comes, civilization follows, prosperity blooms. A few displaced farmers are a small price for the greater good. Your prosperity, your good. The distinction matters less than you'd think. Crane gestured to his men. Now then, you'll surrender your weapons and accompany us. There are still uses for you alive, though I'm flexible on that point. Cole measured distances, angles, chances, slim to none, with innocence in the crossfire. But sometimes slim was enough if you were willing to pay the price. Then Lucy, the young housemaid, did something extraordinary. She stepped forward, chin raised despite her tear-stained cheeks. No, she said simply. Crane blinked. I beg your pardon. I said no. We won't let you take them. She looked around at the other servants. Will we? Margaret straightened. Lucy's right. We've cowered long enough. Fools! Crane's composure cracked slightly. You have no idea what you're risking. Yes, we do. The older woman who'd spoken earlier picked up a heavy rolling pin. We've lived with your evil for years, watched you destroy good people. No more. Others began arming themselves with whatever came to hand, kitchen knives, pokers, hammers from the tool drawer. Not much against guns, but the symbolic weight was enormous. This is absurd. Crane nodded to his men. Shoot them, all of them if necessary. His guards hesitated. Killing armed men was one thing. Massacring a kitchen full of women and servants would be harder to explain away. That hesitation was all Cole needed. His gun cleared leather in a smooth draw. Taking the nearest guard center mass, Rudd's rifle boomed, dropping a second. Eliza's pistol cracked again, wounding a third. The fourth guard, younger than the others, threw down his weapon. I didn't sign up for this killing women and such that ain't right. Crane snatched up the fallen gun, aiming at Eliza. If you want something done properly. Cole moved without thinking, stepping between them as the gun fired. Pain bloomed in his shoulder, spinning him half around. Through the shock, he heard multiple impacts as every armed servant converged on Crane. When the fury cleared, the judge lay still, brought down not by bullets, but by the accumulated rage of those he'd oppressed. There was justice in that, Cole thought hazily. Cole! Eliza's hands pressed against his shoulder, stemming the blood flow. Don't you dare die on me, not now. Wasn't planning on it. The words came out slurred. Though I might sit down for a spell. They eased him to the floor, his back against the wall. The wound throbbed, but didn't seem immediately fatal. Through dimming vision, he saw Rudd securing the surrendered guard while the servants dealt with their own shock. The documents. Cole managed. Still need them. I'll get them. Lucy, brave Lucy, who'd found her voice at the crucial moment, headed for the stairs. Know right where they are. Cleaned that study often enough. Wait. Margaret caught her arm. You shouldn't see what's up there. In the other rooms. You mean the girls' rooms? Lucy's young face hardened beyond her years. Where Clive took... Where he hurt them, I know. We all knew that's why this had to end. She returned with an armload of papers, ledgers, and files. Everything needed to destroy what remained of the Wexler Empire and its allies. Eliza sorted through them with one hand while keeping pressure on Cole's wound with the other. "It's all here," she breathed. "Names, dates, amounts, every crime documented in their own hands." Good. Cole was finding it hard to focus. "Get them to Austin. Don't wait for me." "We go together, or not at all." Her fierce tone brooked no argument. "Rudd, help me get him up. Margaret, is there a wagon?" They moved in a blur of activity. Before full dark, they were rolling toward town in a commandeered freight wagon. Cole propped between hay bales with Eliza tending him. The servants scattered to safety, carrying their own stories of the night the Wexler reign finally ended. "You saved my life," Eliza said softly as they rumbled through the darkness. "You saved mine first. When Blackwood drew—" Cole managed a weak smile. "Guess that makes us even." "No, not even close." She leaned down, pressing her lips to his forehead. "But we'll have time to sort out the debt. All the time in the world. Once you heal up." Through his pain and exhaustion, Cole felt something ease in his chest. The wound would heal, the documents would bring justice, and the shadow over this land would finally lift. But more than that, he'd found something he hadn't been looking for: a partner, a purpose, a reason to see tomorrow as more than just another day to survive. The wagon rolled on through the night, carrying them away from the House of Horrors and toward whatever future they'd build together. Behind them, the Wexler mansion stood empty, a monument now to the truth that power without conscience was just another word for weakness. And in the kitchen, where courage had bloomed unlikely as desert roses, Lucy helped Margaret clean away the blood, both of them standing a little straighter than before. They'd found their voices at last, and no force on earth could silence them again. The storm struck just after midnight, turning the desert into a chaos of wind and ice. Cole drifted in and out of consciousness as the wagon struggled through deepening mud, aware of Eliza's hand steadying him, her voice cutting through his fever dreams. "Hold on," she kept saying. "Just hold on a little longer." Lightning illuminated the trail in stark flashes, ruts become rivers, familiar landmarks erased by the deluge. Rudd fought to keep the horses moving, but even his skill couldn't overcome nature's fury. With a sickening lurch, the wagon slid sideways, tilting dangerously. "Everyone out!" Rudd shouted. "She's going over!" Eliza half-carried, half-dragged Cole from the wagon bed moments before it toppled into a ravine. They huddled against a boulder as hail hammered down, each impact like a fist. "The documents!" Cole gasped. "Safe." Eliza patted the oilcloth bundle she'd tied to her body. "But you're losing too much blood. We need shelter." Through the storm's violence, a light flickered, barely visible, but unmistakably human-made. Rudd spotted it too. "Old line shack," he called over the wind. "Quarter mile, maybe less." They stumbled through the tempest. Cole supported between them. His shoulder blazed with each movement. The makeshift bandage soaked through. The world narrowed to the next step, the next breath. The warmth of Eliza pressed against his side. The shack materialized from the storm like a vision-rough timber walls, a door hanging askew, but blessedly solid. They tumbled inside, gasping. Rudd immediately set about starting a fire with wood from a stack by the cold hearth. "Need to check that wound proper," he said once flames began to catch. Cole's shirt peeled away, sticky with blood. The bullet had passed through cleanly, missing vital organs, but the blood loss was severe. Eliza worked with steady hands, using supplies from the wagon's medical kit they'd managed to save. "This is going to hurt," she warned. "Can't hurt worse than—" Cole bit off a scream as she poured whiskey into the wound. The world went white, then gray, then mercifully dark. He woke to gentler sensations, warmth from the fire, softness of blankets. Eliza's hand cool on his forehead. The storm still raged outside, but the shack held firm. "Welcome back." Her smile was tired but genuine. "You've been out for hours." The fever broke. Rudd added from where he kept watch by the window. "Close thing, though." Cole tried to sit up, stopped by Eliza's firm hand. "How long until—" "Until you can travel days, at least. That wound needs time." She adjusted the blankets around him. "We're safe here. The storm wiped out our tracks, and this place isn't on any map I know of." "But Austin can wait." Her tone brooked no argument. "The dead won't get any deader, and the living need you whole." They settled into an enforced quiet. The storm blew itself out by dawn, leaving a world transformed where desert had been. Temporary lakes reflected the sky. The familiar landscape looked alien, washed clean and strange. Cole dozed fitfully, aware of Eliza's constant presence. She sang softly when she thought he was sleeping French lullabies her grandmother had taught her. The words mysterious but soothing. He found himself fighting sleep just to listen. On the second day, with Cole more lucid, they finally had time to examine the documents thoroughly. What they found exceeded even their worst expectations. "Sure, look at this." Eliza held up a ledger. "Payments to territorial officials, judges, even rangers. The whole system was compromised." "Goes back years," Rudd observed, studying another file. "Before Crane, before the Wexlers. Like someone's been building this network patient as a spider." Cole forced himself to focus through the lingering pain. "There, that symbol. Seen it before." The mark appeared throughout the documents, a stylized eagle clutching railroad tracks. Elegant, distinctive, and chillingly familiar. "Continental Western," Cole breathed. "The railroad company. They're behind all of it." "Makes sense." Rudd mused. "Control the law. Control the land. When the rails come through, they own everything worth owning. All those deaths." Eliza's voice shook with anger. "Families destroyed, lives ruined, for profit margins and stock prices." They spent hours cataloging evidence, building a case that went far beyond local corruption. This was systematic, reaching to the highest levels of territorial government and beyond. "We need more than Austin." Cole realized. "This needs to go federal, maybe even to Washington." "One step at a time," Eliza cautioned. "You're in no shape for that kind of journey." As if to emphasize her point, Cole's attempt to stand sent the room spinning. He sank back, frustrated by his weakness. "I hate this, sitting helpless while you heal from taking a bullet meant for me." Eliza's eyes flashed. "That's not helpless. Cole Ashford, that's the bravest thing anyone's ever done for me." They were alone. Rudd had gone to scout the trail ahead. The shack felt smaller suddenly, intimate with just the two of them and the crackling fire. "Eliza." "Don't." She moved closer, taking his hand. "Don't say it was just duty or instinct or any such nonsense. I saw your face when you stepped in front of that gun. You knew what you were doing." "Course I did. Couldn't let him—" Cole struggled for words. "You matter too much. To the case. To getting justice for Lydia. To you." The question hung between them like a held breath. Cole had spent years building walls around his heart, convinced that caring too much was a luxury a lawman couldn't afford. But Eliza had slipped past those defenses, quiet as morning light. "Yes," he said simply. "To me." She leaned down, her lips brushing his with butterfly softness, then firmer, surer, a promise sealed without words. When they parted, her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "Don't let go," she whispered. "Whatever comes next, whatever we face, don't let go." "Never." He pulled her close with his good arm, feeling her nestle against his uninjured side. "I'll stay with you. Eliza, Always. That's a promise. They remained like that as shadows lengthened, two souls finding harbor in each other amid the storm's aftermath. Outside, the desert began to bloom with sudden flowers, as if the violence of the storm had awakened sleeping beauty. Rudd returned near sunset with news both good and bad. Trails washed out for miles. Gonna take time to get through. But I found tracks single rider, moving careful. Someone else survived the storm. One of Crane's men. Maybe. Or could be a drifter. Either way, we need to be ready to move once you're able. That night, Cole managed to sit up for supper, even walk a few steps with support. The wound still pained him, but the danger had passed. As they shared beans and cornbread, a strange contentment settled over the little shack. Funny, Rudd observed. Spent my whole life chasing outlaws, upholding the law. Now here I am, holed up like a bandit myself. You're upholding justice, Eliza corrected. Sometimes that means going around the law to get to what's right. Your sister would be proud, Cole told her. What you've done, what you're doing, she didn't die for nothing. I know. Eliza touched the locket at her throat. I feel her sometimes, like she's watching, making sure I don't give up. They talked late into the night about the future, about plans for when they reached Austin, about the larger fight ahead, but also about smaller things. Eliza's dream of that dress shop, Cole's memory of his grandfather's stories, Rudd's hope for a little ranch where he could raise horses in peace. When this is over, Eliza said dreamily, I want to find every woman who's been silenced by men like the Wexlers. Give them a place to speak, to heal, to find their strength again. Going to need help with that, Cole observed. Someone who knows both sides of the law. Maybe. She smiled. Are you volunteering, Mr. Ashford? If you'll have me, Miss Hart. I believe we already settled that question. Rudd coughed diplomatically. Think I'll check the horses. Give you two a moment. When he'd gone, Eliza curled closer to Cole, careful of his wound. I was so frightened. When you fell, when the blood wouldn't stop. I thought I'd lost you just when I'd found you. Takes more than one bullet to stop an Ashford. Grandfather took 3 at the Alamo and still made it out. Don't just... Not about this. She pressed her face against his good shoulder. I've lost too much already. I can't lose you too. You won't. He stroked her hair, marveling at its softness. We've come too far to fail now. Together. We're stronger than they are, than all of them. The fire burned low as they held each other, drawing strength from simple proximity. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, the journey to Austin, the fight to expose the conspiracy, the danger that would follow them until justice was done. But tonight, in this storm-battered shack with the desert blooming impossibly outside, they had found something worth any risk. Not just love, though, that burned bright between them, but partnership, purpose, the knowledge that two broken souls could build something whole. I should let you rest, Eliza finally murmured. Stay, please. Cole tightened his hold. Rest comes easier when you're close. She settled against him with a soft sigh. Always. Remember, that was the promise. Best promise I ever made. They slept like that, wrapped in each other and the certainty that whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together. The documents that could bring down an empire rested safely in their oilcloth wrapping. The wound that had nearly claimed Cole's life was healing clean. And, in the vast Texas night, 2 hearts beat in rhythm, having found in each other the home they'd never thought to have. The storm had passed, leaving the world washed and new. And in its wake, love had bloomed as unexpected and resilient as the desert flowers, proof that even in the harshest ground, beauty could take root and thrive. The ruins of the old mission church stood skeletal against the dawn sky. Its bell tower collapsed decades ago, but walls still defiant against time. Cole pressed his back against sun-warmed adobe, checking his revolver's cylinder for the 3rd time. Across the courtyard, Eliza crouched behind a broken fountain, her rifle steady on the rim. "They're coming," Rudd called from his position in the tower remnants. "6 riders. No, make that 8. 3 days out from the shack, with Austin still 40 miles distant, and Crane's surviving network had found them. The ambush site was too good to be coincidence. Someone had herded them here like cattle to slaughter. "That's not random pursuit," Cole muttered. "They knew we'd take this route." The lead rider came into view, and Cole's blood chilled. Harrison Locke, Continental Western's chief enforcer, a man who collected scalps like some collected stamps, with the railroad's money making him untouchable by law. "Ashford," Locke's voice boomed across the ruins. "And the lovely Miss Hart. You've led us quite a chase." "Not much of a chase if you knew where we'd be," Cole called back. Locke's laugh was winter wind over gravestones. "The railroad has friends everywhere, even in your precious Gray Butte. Did you think that telegraph operator would stay bought for long?" "Tobias." Cole's jaw clenched. The man he'd trusted had sold them out after all. Money talked louder than friendship in the end. "Here's the offer," Locke continued. "The documents for your lives. Simple trade. You can disappear. Start over somewhere the railroad doesn't reach. Though between you and me, there aren't many such places left." "Counteroffer," Eliza shouted, her voice steady as her aim. "You turn around now, and we only put 1 bullet in you instead of 5. Spirited, I do admire courage in a woman. Makes breaking them so much more satisfying. Cole saw Eliza's knuckles whiten on her rifle stock. "Easy," he called softly. "He's trying to rile you. Don't give him the satisfaction." More riders appeared, spreading out to encircle the ruins. Cole counted 12 now, all armed, all moving with the easy confidence of men who'd done this before. The odds were getting worse by the moment. "What do you think, Rudd?" Cole asked. "I think we're going to need a miracle, or at least some very good shooting." "Then let's give them some—" Cole's first shot took Locke's hat off, sending the man diving for cover. The morning erupted in gunfire, bullets chipping stone and whining off ancient walls. Eliza's rifle cracked steady as a metronome, keeping heads down on the eastern approach. For a few minutes, their defensive position held. The mission walls, built to withstand Apache raids, shrugged off bullets like raindrops, but ammunition wasn't infinite, and Locke's men were patient as buzzards. "They're trying to flank us," Rudd warned. 2 men moving through the cemetery. Cole shifted position, catching sight of figures darting between weathered headstones. He fired, saw one spin and fall. The other dove behind a marble angel, pinned but dangerous. Then Eliza cried out not hit, but her rifle had jammed. She fought with the mechanism as bullets sparked off the fountain rim inches from her head. "Stay down," Cole started across the courtyard, firing as he ran. Halfway there, hot lead creased his thigh, sending him tumbling behind a pile of rubble. Fresh blood soaked through his pants, the barely healed shoulder wound screaming in sympathy. "Cole!" Eliza abandoned her position, crawling toward him. "No, get back." Too late. Locke's men surged forward, sensing weakness. Cole emptied his revolver, driving some back, but others kept coming. This was it, their last stand in a ruined church, fitting end for a fool's crusade. Then hoofbeats thundered from the south. New riders, moving fast and firing as they came. Cole glimpsed a familiar figure in the lead Marshal Thompson, the federal man who'd arrested Clive Wexler. U.S. Marshals. Thompson's voice cut through the gunfire. "Throw down your weapons." Locke's men hesitated, caught between 2 forces. That hesitation cost them. The marshals were outnumbered but better positioned, and they had the law's weight behind their bullets. One by one, the railroad gunmen fell or surrendered. Locke himself tried to run, spurring his horse toward the open desert. Eliza, her rifle finally cleared, tracked him with cold precision. Her shot took him clean between the shoulders, ending his reign of terror in a puff of dust. As suddenly as it began, the battle was over. Smoke drifted across the mission grounds, mixing with the copper scent of blood. Cole struggled to sit up, assessing the damage. The thigh wound was messy but not deep, though combined with his other injuries, he felt weak as a newborn colt. Thompson approached, his weathered face grim but satisfied. "Looks like we arrived just in time." "How did you know?" Eliza asked. "Supporting Cole. Got word from Gray Butte 3 days ago. Seems your friend Tobias had second thoughts about his betrayal. Sent a coded message warning us about Locke's ambush, then lit out for California before the railroad could collect on his head." Thompson surveyed the carnage. "Also mentioned you were carrying evidence that could burn down half the territorial government. That true?" Cole nodded toward the oilcloth bundle still strapped to Eliza's back. "Every dirty deal, every bribe, every murder, all documented in their own hands." "Then we'd best get you to Austin quick. The governor's called a special session, and the federal prosecutor is eager to start issuing warrants." Thompson's smile was sharp as a blade. "Seems the president himself is interested in cleaning up the territories before statehood. Your evidence is exactly what we needed." They rigged a travois for Cole, his injuries making horseback impossible. As the convoy formed up, Eliza rode beside him, one hand resting on his where he gripped the travois poles. "You keep getting hurt protecting me," she said softly. "And you keep saving me right back. We're developing quite a rhythm. I'd prefer a less painful one. Where's the fun in that?" She tried to smile, but worry clouded her eyes. "That boy Tobias saved us. After betraying us first, people are complicated." "That they are. Sometimes fear wins, sometimes conscience. Lucky for us, his conscience was louder in the end." The journey to Austin took 2 days. Cole drifting in and out of consciousness as fever fought with his body's reserves. He woke sometimes to Eliza's voice, reading from a small Bible she'd found in his grandfather's things. Other times to her singing those French lullabies. Always, she was there. Austin sprawled along the Colorado River like a promise of civilization. The Capitol building rose proud against the sky, its dome a beacon of law and order, or at least the hope of it. They were met at the outskirts by a full escort of marshals and Texas Rangers, the documents now precious as gold and twice as dangerous to certain parties. The trial preparations began immediately. Cole, confined to bed in a guarded hotel room, gave his deposition to a parade of lawyers and investigators. Eliza rarely left his side, adding her own testimony and helping organize the mountain of evidence. "There's enough here to indict 40 men. The lead prosecutor, a sharp-eyed woman named Catherine Morgan, told them. Maybe more. Continental Western's whole operation was built on corruption and blood." "Will it stick?" Cole asked. "They have money for the best lawyers." "They have money," Morgan agreed. "But we have the truth, and a president who needs to show he's tough on corruption before the midterm elections. Politics and justice aligning, it's a beautiful thing." News traveled fast. Within days, arrests were being made across the territory. Railroad executives, territorial judges, land commissioners, the whole rotten network began to collapse. Some fled to Mexico. Others, like Crane had tried to do, attempted to brazen it out. None succeeded. "It's really happening," Eliza marveled, reading the latest newspaper accounts. "They're actually facing justice." "Your sister did this," Cole reminded her. "Her courage started it all. We all did it. Everyone who stood up, who refused to be silenced." She touched the locket. "But yes, Lydia most of all." The day Cole was finally able to walk unassisted, they ventured out into Austin's bustling streets. The city hummed with energy, new buildings rising, people streaming in from all directions, the future taking shape in timber and stone. "There's something I need to tell you," Eliza said as they rested in a small plaza. "Marshal Thompson offered me a position, helping other women who've been victims of powerful men, setting up safe houses, gathering testimony. building cases. That's wonderful. It's exactly what you talked about. It would mean traveling, being away for weeks sometimes, dangerous work. Cole took her hand. And you're worried about us about me. Aren't you? Eliza, I fell in love with a woman who faced down hired killers and corrupt judges, who learned to shoot to protect what's right. You think I'd ask you to give that up for my comfort? Some men would. I'm not some men. He drew her close. We made promises in that shack. Not just to stay together, but to stay ourselves. This work, it's part of you now. Just like justice is part of me. So what do? We do what needs doing, together when we can, supporting each other when we can't. Build something real on trust and purpose, not just proximity. She kissed him then, there in the plaza with Austin flowing around them like a river. When they parted, her eyes were bright with tears and determination mixed. I love you, Cole Ashford. And I love you, Eliza Hart. Whatever comes next, that won't change. The trials began 2 weeks later. Cole testified for 3 straight days, his words helping weave the net that would trap dozens of conspirators. Eliza was magnificent on the stand, her quiet dignity and precise memory devastating to the defense. The star moment came when Lucy, the young housemaid from the Wexler estate, took the stand. She'd traveled all the way to Austin, faced her fears, and spoke truth that no amount of legal maneuvering could obscure. When she finished, several jurors were crying. One by one, the guilty fell. Continental Western's charter was revoked, its assets seized. The money went to a fund for the families they'd destroyed, small compensation for lives lost. But the Wexler estate was sold, the proceeds distributed among the servants who'd suffered there. On the trial's last day, as guilty verdicts rang out like church bells, Cole stood with Eliza on the courthouse steps. The crowd cheered, but they had eyes only for each other. It's over, she breathed. This part is, Cole corrected. The work goes on, always will, as long as there are those who'd use power to hurt others. Then we'd better get started. She smiled, that fierce expression he'd come to love. Together. Always. That was the promise. Remember. Best promise ever made. She agreed, as the sun set over Austin, painting the sky in shades of justice and hope. They walked hand in hand toward whatever future they would build. Behind them, the courthouse stood monument to the truth that even the mightiest could fall when good people found their courage. Ahead lay new challenges, new battles to fight, but also love, purpose, and the knowledge that 2 souls united in righteousness could move mountains, or at least make them tremble. The desert had taught them resilience. Violence had taught them strength. And in each other, they'd found the rarest treasure of all, a love that didn't diminish in the face of duty but grew stronger because of it. The last light faded as they reached their hotel, but their story was just beginning. The morning Cole turned in his badge. Gray Butte barely stirred. No ceremony marked the moment, just a quiet conversation with Mayor Henderson and the soft clink of metal on wood as Cole laid the star on the desk. You sure about this? Henderson asked, though his eyes showed he already knew the answer. Time for something new. Cole touched the badge once more, remembering the weight of it, the promise it had held. The law and justice parted ways for me a while back. Figure I'll follow justice and see where it leads. Outside, Eliza waited with a loaded wagon, her new sewing machine secured between crates of fabric and supplies. 6 months had passed since the trials in Austin. 6 months of testimony, of watching the corrupt network crumble, of planning what came next. Ready? She asked, though her smile said she knew this answer too. Ready? They'd chosen their path carefully. Not the grand crusade some expected, but something quieter, deeper. A storefront in Gray Butte where Eliza would establish her shop part seamstress, part sanctuary for women needing help. An office next door where Cole would offer his peculiar blend of legal knowledge and frontier justice to those the system had failed. Still think we should call it Hart and Ashford, partners in justice, Eliza teased as they drove through town. Bit dramatic for a dress shop and legal advisory, don't you think? Drama got us this far. True enough, the whole territory still buzzed with stories of their stand against the railroad conspiracy. Some called them heroes, others, particularly those who'd profited from the old ways, used different names, but in towns like Gray Butte, among people who'd suffered under corrupt rule, they were simply folks who'd done what needed doing. The shop came together quickly. Mabel donated furniture. Father Quinn blessed the space, and half the town turned out to help paint and clean. Even Tobias sent a letter from California, along with a bolt of fine silk, his way of making amends for his moment of weakness. On opening day, a line of women stretched down the block. Some came for alterations or new dresses. Others came for Eliza's other services, a quiet word, a safe place to speak truth. Connections to Marshall Thompson's new task force that investigated crimes against women and children. Mrs. Martinez needs help, Eliza told Cole that evening, exhausted but glowing with purpose. Her employer's been withholding wages, threatening her family if she complains. I'll look into it. Cole made notes in his ledger. The Territorial Labor Board owes me favors from the Continental Western investigation. This became their rhythm. Eliza's shop as the front door where people felt safe approaching. Cole's office as the machinery that ground slow but certain toward justice. Not every case was dramatic. Most were small injustices, stolen wages, illegal foreclosures, intimidation that fell short of murder but destroyed lives all the same. But small victories accumulated like desert rain in cisterns. The Martinez family got their wages plus penalties. A widow kept her farm when Cole found irregularities in the foreclosure notice. 3 young women escaped from a boarding house that was anything but, testifying to put the owners in prison. You're building something? Rudd observed one evening. He'd taken the sheriff's position in a neighboring town, but rode over regularly. Not just fixing individual problems, but changing how folks think about justice. People are learning they don't have to accept abuse, Eliza said, pinning fabric for a wedding dress, this one for Lucy, the brave housemaid who'd stood up to Judge Crane. That's all. They always had the power. They just needed to remember it. Not everyone appreciated their work. Cole found his office window broken twice. Anonymous threats slipped under the door. Men who'd grown fat on others' suffering didn't appreciate the new landscape. But for every threat, 10 people offered support. The town had tasted what collective courage could accomplish. They wouldn't go back to the old ways. One afternoon, a familiar face appeared in Eliza's shop. Margaret, the servant who'd helped them escape the Wexler estate, stood uncertain in the doorway. Wasn't sure of my welcome, she said softly. You're always welcome here. Eliza embraced her. How are you? Free. For the first time in my life. Truly free. Margaret's eyes shone. I've been working with the sisters, helping other women leave bad situations. But I heard what you're doing here and thought, maybe I could help. They took her on immediately. Margaret's knowledge of how the powerful preyed on servants proved invaluable. Within a month, they'd helped a dozen women escape similar situations. Always legally, always carefully, but effectively. The first winter tested them. Money ran short as they often worked for those who couldn't pay. Coal for the stove became a luxury. Cole took to wearing fingerless gloves while writing briefs, and Eliza mended their own clothes so often he joked about patches having patches. We could take the railroad settlement offer. Eliza mentioned one particularly cold night. Continental Western, under new management, had offered substantial sums to keep certain testimonies out of civil court. We could. Cole fed another precious log to the stove. But then we'd owe our comfort to the suffering we witnessed. Doesn't sit right. No, she agreed, curling against him for warmth. It doesn't. They made it through. Barely. Spring brought new hope and unexpected help. The territorial government, reformed in the wake of the trials, established a fund for legal aid to the poor. Cole's office was selected as a distribution point, bringing steady income for the first time. "Look at you," Eliza teased. "Working for the government after all." Working with, not for, important distinction. Their partnership deepened in ways neither had expected. They married on a Sunday in June, Father Quinn officiating while the whole town crowded into the church. No fancy ceremony. Eliza wore a simple dress she'd made herself. Cole his one good suit carefully preserved. But the joy in that small space could have lit up Austin. "Do you, Cole Ashford, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, in pursuit of justice and in quiet moments, in danger and in safety, as long as you both shall live?" "I do, always have, always will." "And do you, Eliza Hart, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband, to stand beside in all fights worth fighting, to heal and be healed by, to love with the fierce devotion you've shown since the day you met?" "I do, forever and then some." They honeymooned by keeping the shop open and catching up on paperwork. Romance, frontier style. But that night, in their small apartment above the shop, they danced to music only they could hear. Two souls who'd found their match in courage and compassion, both. The work continued, expanded. Even they established reading classes for women who'd never learned, using the back room of Eliza's shop. Cole taught basic law contracts, rights, how to recognize and resist exploitation. Knowledge spread like wildfire in dry grass. "You're revolutionaries," Marshall Thompson said during one of his visits. "Quiet ones, but revolutionaries all the same." "Just trying to level a tilted field." Cole replied, "Same thing, in the end." Perhaps it was. The changes came slow but steady. Women who'd suffered in silence found voices. Workers organized to demand fair treatment. Even some ranchers who'd benefited from the old system began to see that justice served everyone better than corruption. Not every story ended happily. They lost cases, saw good people ground down by remaining corruption, held too many grieving families, but they also witnessed triumphs that made it worthwhile. Lucy's wedding to a good man who valued her courage. Margaret opening her own boarding house for women in transition. The Anders children, orphaned by greed, adopted by families who'd fought alongside Cole and Eliza. 5 years on, they stood in their expanded office, 2 storefronts now, with 3 assistants and a steady stream of clients. Eliza's hair showed premature silver from stress and worry. Cole walked with a slight limp from his accumulated wounds, but their eyes remained bright, their purpose undimmed. "Any regrets?" Eliza asked, watching sunset paint Gray Butte in shades of gold and possibility. "Not one. Only that Lydia couldn't see this, what her sacrifice built." "She sees..." Cole pulled her close. "Every woman who walks free because of what we've done. Every child who keeps their home. Every family that stays together she sees." They stood together as darkness gathered. 2 people who'd chosen the harder path and found it led to unexpected blessing. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new injustices to fight. It always did. But tonight, they had each other and the knowledge that they'd kept their promise to stay together, to fight together, to never let go. The lamp in their window burned late, a beacon for those still seeking justice, and in the vast Texas night, other lamps answered, lit by those they'd helped who now helped others. A network of light pushing back the darkness. Proof that courage could be contagious and love could be revolutionary. Their story had become legend in the territory, told in cantinas and churches, inspiring others to stand tall. But for Cole and Eliza, it was simpler than legend. It was Tuesday night, with casework to review and tomorrow's battles to plan. It was holding hands across their desk as they worked. It was keeping promises made in desperate moments and finding they grew sweeter with time. The desert winds sang through Gray Butte streets, carrying whispers of change. And in a modest office above a dress shop, 2 hearts beat in rhythm with justice itself. proof that some partnerships were written in stars and sealed in sacrifice, enduring as the mountains and twice as strong. Thank you for listening to this story from the Wild West. I'd love to hear where you're listening from. Please share in the comments below so we can connect and discuss what touched your heart in this tale. If you enjoyed Cole and Eliza's journey, please subscribe to Wild West Night for more stories of courage and love from the American frontier. Don't forget to like this video and hit the hype button to help more people discover these tales of justice and redemption. Until our next adventure, partners, keep riding true.